right? As parents, it'd be easier to just be like, go forth and do great, which is fine, right? But for him, he needs a little bit more supports than just go forth and do great. Although we do tell him that as well. He said it. Did he also tell you do work?
Yes, you do.
I didn't take the second. Third, the importance of engagement and support for both parents, family members, and we'll talk about that later on. And that transition is constant throughout the lifetime of youth and family. That's kind of why I named it Crossroads, and I use a picture of a marathon runner, because it is always changing. It's something that we have to work at every day. Whether I think you have a child with a disability, identified or not, right? I think even as adults, we know that things are always changing for us. We're always growing. So it's just something that that just happens in life, hopefully. Earlier this morning, we were talking about supporting our children and youth, and I don't know if it was Angie said something like, we still do it, and I was like, yes, it never ends. So dreams are born, like many young couples. I don't know, were we young? We weren't that young. But we were blessed.
I don't know where you were.
You remember you weren't there?
No.
We were blessed with a 10-pound, 4-ounce child. Yes, that burden inside of this. Actually, I have a former manager who was here who saw that growth happen. They were like, oh my God, you're so huge. I was like, I know, I love
Just what over you.
So the first 6 months, we were, really happy, excited, having a kiddo, watching them grow. This picture is literally about a month after he was born. He's ginormous. Like, God, I mean, that's enormous. It was literally a month. I think it was right around Christmas time, and we had a neighbor's house across the street. And I remember someone taking this picture going, oh my God, look at him. I was like, I know, he was born in Tulsa. Like, literally, I remember, if you had a child, you're like just hysterical, right? The world is now like everything is a danger and you're a horrible person because you can't do anything right. So he was born, and I'll save all that drama. But anyway, we didn't know he was going to be that big. So I was just hysterical. I don't have anything. How am I going to feed him? He's so huge. And I remember calling my sister. With the clothes we brought, don't even fit him. I don't have anything. Go to the store. So she had to go get clothes. He literally he was like a toddler when he was born. And he was like, so a little bit of a backstory on that. I'm the oldest of 4, and my third sibling down, I was 12 when I held him for his first, what we call then grand mal seizure, what we call tonic-clonic now, right? It's the seizure that has a lot of movement. Person kind of looks unconscious. And my brother was 6 months old at the time. So my introduction into disabilities, child development, support, started very, very early on. My mom, who I didn't know at the time, was really mentoring me on how to, if they say no, you write yellow pages back then, turn the yellow page, and call another phone number. My mom, without knowing anything, got connected to all the early services. Therapist, understood what that was, coordinated all the therapies, worked full time, and had 3 kids, went on to have a 4th kiddo. We don't talk about him much. I'm just joking. He's great. He's great.
He's not here.
He's not here, that's right. So I did have a little bit of a background. I think because of that experience, I went on to become interested in early childhood. And in high school, we had a program in our high school. And at about 10th grade, I was able to start doing like internships in child development. I would spend half my day at school and half the day at a child care center. So I had a little bit of experience with child development by the time he was born. I'm not kidding you if I tell you that I already seen or had contact with probably 500 children. Just kind of, right, noticing development, play, and things like that. So at 9 months old, I remember already kind of noticing some things about him. Jennifer Chin yesterday said, that her parents or family had told her, "You were a really good baby. You were so quiet." And I remember thinking that about him. I was like, he's so quiet. He like does nothing. Like I change him and give him a bottle, 3 bottles at that time, because he was so huge. He was just quiet and just happy to stare at the ceiling fan. Red flag. So one day he was laying there and I was just kind of looking at him going, am I imagining this? Is this really happening? And my husband came home and we have one of those annoying garage doors that you walk in and it slams and shakes the whole house. And so that's what happened. And I'm looking at Cohen laying on the ground and he doesn't even move it, doesn't even start up him. And I'm like, okay, this is an issue. So I told my husband a few days later, I think this might be going on, I don't know. As he got older, we noticed that he didn't have any joint attention anymore. He was just kind of in his own world. He was smaller things started to really bother him. So we just, took note of that. So a friend of mine was working at the Early Childhood Center at our agency provider at our local mental health agency at the time. And I remember calling her and I said, "Look, I'm giving you a heads up. This is what's happened to you. This is what I see." And she said, "Girl, he's fine. He's a boy. He's fine." And I said, went to the doctor. "He's a boy. He's fine." And I was like, is he? So after, it says here 2 years, because my friend brought ECI in her team, they're like, "He's a boy. He's fine." A year later, I said, "Girl, come back." I called her 2 months before. "Put me on your schedule, girl, come back." She came back with her team. "Oh my God, he's so delayed." And I'm like, I'm trying to tell you. So in that year, thankfully, my husband had married someone who was familiar with child development. And I remember telling my husband, "I don't know if this kid's ever gonna talk, but we have to teach him a way to express what he needs. And to have some," at the time I didn't know it was called self-agency, but some agency around what he wanted, what his needs were. And so we just drew pictures of everything, all the time. I hated it, but that's what we did. Do you remember any of those?
Most likely bits and pieces of it. Yeah, and then it comes gravitationally.
So that's what we did. We drew pictures of everything. At a restaurant, activities, until that story a little bit. So we just continued to do what we thought was developmentally appropriate for him. And then they came back, ECI came back, "Oh my gosh, all the red flags." I was like, "Let's set that off." So that was I2. Even now, I just wanted to list all of the supports that we've had. And this is probably most, or if not all of them. Here you'll see yes waiver. Are y'all familiar with yes waiver? So say yes. Yeah, so that would be a mental health waiver, right? Class waiver, are y'all familiar with class waiver? Some of you. So that would be an IDD waiver that he was on an interest list for almost 13 years. And that's because we put him on that list when he was about 4, I think. MDCP waiver, anyone familiar with MDCP? So that's a medically dependent children's program. Once we got his official diagnosis, I was like, "Put his name on the list." So we did put his name on MDCP waiver list. And at the time, this part I wasn't aware of. At the time, we went through the process, he was denied. I had a lot going on because a lot of his ADHD symptoms were starting to pop up, so we were just trying to manage that. And I got a denial letter, you have 30 days to appeal. I'm like, I do not have time for this stuff. On day, I'm not kidding you, 29, I was like, do I have time to appeal? You really just had to sign the form to send it back in. I was like, okay, that's easy. So they give me a call, we're having this meeting and we're going to do your appeal. I really had no idea what that meant. In that very short time, just a few weeks, he had been, had a kind of an asthma episode. So he then was put on 2 asthma medications and then also This is a good story. I was on the way to school to pick him up, and he had a speech therapy appointment, I think. And we had started to see a neurologist, just to rule anything else out. So I'm on my way to pick him up, and we had for the speech appointment, I get a phone call. It's Heston, yeah. Are you nearby? Yes, I'm on my way. What's going on? Well, let's stab somebody in the eye with a pencil just now. Nearby. I was like, oh my God, that's all right. I'm imagining some kid is like carrying their eyeball in their hand, and some parent is waiting at the door to be by. But it's not that way now. They didn't really stab, but then.
Thankfully, they didn't do that like that, or else I'd be probably somewhere else right now.
So they didn't really stab us in the eye. I think it was, I don't remember where it was, but it was an eye. Nobody was holding the eyeball. So anyway, got there down, like, okay, we actually have an appointment tomorrow. They're like, he can't come back tomorrow. I was like, well, we gotta have my meeting anyway. So we saw the neurologist the next day, kind of told him what had been going on, and so he started medication for ADHD. I think it was a stimulant at the time. So in that short period of me deciding to appeal at the very last minute and having this appeal hearing, he had started 3 different medications and really kind of 2 different protocols. So I gave him the phone, and they started asking me, the nurse was very upset that I asked for an appeal. Asking me all these just really rude questions and kind of in a rude tone. And finally I was like, what's going on here? And finally they said, well, you didn't tell us any of this 30 days ago. Like, did you just make this up? I'm like, oh. I said, I'm not that smart. And really, who wants their kid? They're 6-year-olds. Were you 6?
I think I made some mistakes.
Yeah, I think you were 6 or something, yeah. Who wants their kid on all these medications? I think you were first grade. Who wants their kid on all these medications? No, I did not make this up. So they had to overturn their denial and approve him because he was now taking medication that he couldn't manage on his own. Little did I know that at that time, that would be our saving grace, because then we used Medicaid to pay for speech therapy and his mental health medications. So that was the very first time that I kind of, a light bulb went off. I was like, oh, right? We have these different resources that may not work first, or that we really have to work really hard at, but to make those 2 work together. So he utilized the MDCP waiver, I think, for about 4 or 5 years. So those really early years of all that early intervention, I am really grateful for this. Do y'all know how much it costs for 1 speech appointment, 1 OT appointment? That's a long money. And this kid was going like 3 or 4 times a week. So anyway, that's the story about MDCP. And then they kicked us off because it changed the rules. That really, I think they got smart, and they're like, I don't think you're supposed to use it. That would have 1,000 in it. So public school, right, the special education system, private providers, we have had to use some private providers. Community-based services, we used our local mental health agency for a while, especially for the yes waiver. Do you want to talk about any of the other therapies that you've done?
My things are art therapies, there for years. Stayed on people have been wonderful with the physical also as well. Recreational, I'm actually continuing at the moment. I have done music therapy as well, and then therapeutic horseback riding is what was the term for it?
I think that's what we call it, therapeutic horseback riding. There is hippotherapy or equine therapy. I get confused to which one he actually does. So I feel like the therapeutic horseback riding is kind of a novella for both. Quick story about that. When we met her, when he was, we mentioned he was nonverbal till right before he turned 6. We met her at therapist right around 2.5 or 3 years old, the day before.
Probably 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5. And she's actually a speech therapist that does speech therapy on horseback. And I was like, I mean, horses are great. Not if, what okay, it's horse. And I was like, let's just see how this goes. What who I didn't put on then? This, like, don't tell my mother-in-law. But my in-laws really helped us a lot at the very beginning, because again, right, that stuff is expensive. And, insurance is a different color than that, so I really should put her on the slide. They were very helpful to us as well. Anyway, back to that story. So we go, and he has to wait for the horse to be ready. And it was kind of like some steps like this, and then climb up to get onto the horse. He had to wait, and he was not going to. He was like, I'm not waiting. Like, I'm throwing myself on the ground, I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm grabbing. And that speech therapist showed us this is going to pay off, because that was the first lesson in that speech therapy, was how to wait. I think even some adults now, all of them need down listen. But by the second or third time that we went, he was able to at least wait for 2 or 3 minutes calmly before it's just her day to do that. We have seen her over the years, on and up, and like she said, currently through his class waiver. She's a provider currently, so we see her once a week when it's 110 degrees outside.
Wow.
I don't know where to start with this.
Start in the beginning with the curly hair.
Before I didn't have used to have this great looking hair. Earlier on I did have extremely curly hair like this man over here. Thankfully I don't anymore.
The curls actually, the people would call it, yet if it weren't for that smile and those curls, that's what's saving your kid. And I'm like, oh no. We didn't cut him off till he was about 5. Because we needed him, it was our insurance. So he started early, the preschool program at 3 years old. ECI helped us transition, but by the time we got ECI really going, it was like, y'all know ECI, right? We just had a very short time with ECI and then transitioned very quickly into public school. That in itself is a whole other story for a whole other time. So he began at a public school. It wasn't the one that was assigned to us in our district. That's also a good story too. I gosh, all these stories. The neighbor across the street from us, her children were attending the child care center at the school that she taught. And long story, but after I researched a home daycare for him, the daycare provider called me one day. She said, hey, I said, hey, what's up? Oh, I just wanted to check in. I said, okay, what's going on? I just want to let you know that a kid bit your son. It happens. It was little. He's like 9, maybe 10 months old. I was like, okay, is he all right? Yeah, he's okay. Okay. So I bit the other kid that bit your kid, so he wouldn't do that again.
Wait a minute, I don't remember this part of the story.
I didn't think so. You're a teeny tiny. So I was working in downtown Austin at the time. He was in Forest South Austin. I called my husband. I was like, this just happened, so I don't know what's going to happen. So I told my boss I got to go. Went home, picked him up, and took him to a friend's house who lives in Mount Rock. So she got to take care of him for a few months while I found child care. I went back to my neighbor. I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Do you think your place at least temporarily has a spot for my kiddo? She said, yes, I think so. So he ended up at that child care center right before he started the preschool program, the public preschool program. So that was, I am a person of faith. So I will say a lot of times I think God just really puts things where they need to be. This is definitely, I could not have figured this one out. He definitely put this together for us. So he ended up being in the child care center at the school that he was going to. The child care director one day called me about 6 months later, no, 2 or 3 months later. Oh my God, something's wrong with Glenn. I was like, what's wrong? Oh, he's crying and crawling under the table. And I was like, okay. And at this time, we were just really getting into the throes of his autism symptoms. I was like, okay. And I hadn't told her. And she goes, and then she starts crying. I was like, oh my God, is he okay? Are you okay? Is the kid's okay? She goes, yes, I just think he's showing the same signs as my own son. And my son has autism. So not only had we, been put in a spot where the child care center was at the school, the daycare provider was someone who was on a similar journey as us as well. So that was just a blessing for us until he was she really was his second mom. He's had a lot of moms along the way.
Until about 10, because she ran a summer camp program. So I went to that for quite a while until, like I said, I was about 10.
Yep, it's true that I was about to say that. So again, here we're using our systems in our community to reach out to and finding that support that we really needed during those years. So he went through school. I think this middle school. You can see that second grade. That one cool Joe up there is 5th grade at the talent show. I don't know if you can tell from far away, but there's 3 girls in the background. Do you remember who they were?
Yeah, I do. They were my backup singers. Hopefully all the footage of that specific time has been destroyed and lost in the
Sorry to tell you, it lives on my hard drive.
Then after this.
So he went on to middle school, which for him turned out to be really horrendous. We really reached out to a lot of supports that we had. Eventually, he moved out of public school, and that's the top right photo. He was at a private school for a few months, and we had a little celebration one of those nights. So that's where his public school career, I guess, ended, was in 8th grade.
All right, so all of this is, well, my interests. Some of them are more work-related, like lifting soda cans in order to cycle them to get money out of it. I like taking walks a lot of the time. Cooking is something that I try to get into and usually don't succeed at because the conditions great. Art is a very big part of what I enjoy a lot, like painting, drawing, sketching. It's all very interesting to me because it's something that I get out onto the paper and just whatever ideas comes to mind, I get it on and draw it. Oh yeah, so that far right picture here, that's actually a second picture, a watercolor picture I made in the 2nd grade, and our neighbor for my 18th birthday made actual cake from that picture. Yeah, we still have that thing hung up to this day.
Not the cake, that's the down.
That went down a long time ago. The picture that was still in there.
Yeah. So, as you heard me mention a second ago about his public school career, we really had to change. I had to change. We had to change what we really thought about, how we thought about is academics and, preparing for school. Based on my experience in high school, where I really, honestly, having that opportunity to dive into a career early on really is what has led me to where I am here today. So I think for me, I was not the kid who, carried votes and had A's and was super smart or any of that. So I think that was just helpful for me to just have a different view of what academics or school should be like for him.
Yeah, and there's that our projectors off at the moment.
Yes.
So
we really focused on, especially once he left public school, really what life skills were for him. He actually was, he was a late reader, but he did learn to read. I think by maybe 3rd grade is when he really started to read fluently. Math was something he's always been really great at. Math in public school for him kind of stifled that math growth, if you will, and that enjoyment of math. So we really took about 1.5 years to really kind of rehabilitate his love of learning and reading. I don't know that he loves math yet, still.
I can take it or I can leave it. But, I'm sure we all hate the problems with letters instead of actual numbers.
But if it has a dollar sign in front of it, he's really good at it. So we just really try to expose him to, all different types of activities. We see him out there mowing the grass. I think he tried that a couple of times and we do lots of volunteering as a family. There's an organization in Austin, I think it's called Generation Serve, and they provide volunteer opportunities for children. So we volunteered with them for several years just to get out in the community, right? We need to know our community, give back to our community. So we did a lot of volunteering. Like he said, his interest, drawing, cooking, up here was the first time he voted when there's the three of us. He's wearing a red shirt. He did Special Olympics a couple of years, I think. This is a swimming one that he did. So, and up there we're volunteering with Generation Serve. So again, he wanted to try these different things, so we did. It takes extra effort a lot of times because he has to have specific supports, especially early on. Like, how long are we going to be there? Make sure we have snacks, bring the headphones. He needs a break sometimes, so make sure there's a phone, make sure you have a charger for the phone, right? All those different things. So we have those supports in place, but we're still out there doing all the things and really reimagining what he wants to do and help him along that path.
So this was very important. So the supports that were in place for my time in public school were very, very helpful. Yes. They supported me all throughout. Of course, there were issues, but that was mostly deal with my part. But they were wonderful, at least the majority of the people there were wonderful. And really understood me, and
that's good. So along the lines of listening to what he, right, again, youth voice, once he was out of public school, we settled on homeschooling. Does it say that? Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So we ended up settling on homeschool. I'm not here to school you on Texas homeschool, but in Texas, Texas homeschools, if you decide to do that, are considered a private school. And you can really develop your curriculum however you need it in order to fit the goals of the student in your homeschool. So that's what we did. We also were able to connect with a tutoring company who helped him with some of the academics. Still in my head, I was like, well, he still has to have this, and he has to have this, and he has to have this. But it was really helpful in helping him kind of relearn how to learn. And he loves it. Even now, I mean, if you ask him a question, we do encyclopedias of bank of information. So he, on his own, loves to learn. That last year in public school just kind of really brought to him of that. And so we wanted to really build that back in. And that's what we were able to do for about a year and a half of homeschooling. After that, the homeschool was like, he's really smart enough. I know. He's like, we have no one else to do this. Like, neither do I. So, but it was important for him to feel like he had accomplished that part of his life of high school. So we started to talk to the homeschool people are like, well, do we want to talk to him about a GED? And I was like, well, why not? I mean, it's an option. And they're like, so start. I was like, having a GED to me does not mean you're not smart. It actually to me means you're kind of smart because you just were like, I just get this done. So once we explained it to him, I don't know if you remember that meeting with Mr. Steve in the house.
I do remember it.
He was like, why didn't y'all tell me this before? And I was like, all right, then that's what we'll focus on. So we had that meeting in the spring, and by October of 2020, he completed all of, if you don't know, there are 4 exams for a GED, and he completed all 4. So people always ask me, where did you get that cap and gown? Where do y'all think I got that cap and gown? Amazon, all of them. And then there's a little decal. My sister printed out a decal, as we called it, Foible Academy. So I guess somebody say, that's not us. Like the campaign. This picture that he's holding is his kindergarten graduation. That daycare provider, it was the daycare graduation. She was always doing all kinds of things and all kinds of pictures. So that's him. So preparing for transitions. Again, if there is a list, I guarantee you Adrian Heston's name is on it. If there's an agency that provides services, guarantee stuff, Nidia Heston left a voicemail or an email to find out what can you do for my kid.
Any list that's open, her name is on there.
And it's true, I really think about my mom, literally seeing her, flipping through those pages, having notes and notes of pages when she was with her services for my brother. It's really what I have in my mind when I'm calling around or emailing crisis.
Certainly. So I started off working early young, get this open point. I was being homeschooled. I went to the workforce, a specific program, Texas Workforce Center at, I just said 14. I did need a little bit of assistance, but overall, like it said, I feel like I am very capable about working, and I've done several internships through this and at part-time positions due to this sort of training. I am actually in another internship right now that I came back from to speak with here now. It is at the Jewish Community Center, the JCC. It's working with the summer camp, the kids.
Right, so one of the communities that we'll talk about here in just a second, they were able to partner with TWC and the Jewish Jail Center here in Austin. It's provided summer internship for youth. And so he at Penn Rice, just to support, he's been involved in lots of these kind of training programs, but that's okay, right? I mean, how many jobs have we had before we were at the job and see, there's quite a job, right? All jobs are just to be here, just 8 dishes. Oh, some of us at the what am I trying to do with this one doing? Yeah, so that's what we do. We really try, and he's done kind of a summer camp with Raven's STEM camp. He did one at a cooking place. He's curved.
I'm currently doing another summer camp internship with Lestad.
And then his regular part-time job is at the speech therapist, I forgot to mention her, that we met when he was 3. Again, we've stayed in contact with her over the years. He even still gets speech and OT at the clinic, but then also works about 9 hours a week there as well. So again, right, it's just reaching out to your community and sticking with your community. So we are in Charlotte, Texas Workforce Center. If there's anyone here from there, please come on because I have some serious questions. I can't get it back. But what has been helpful is that we just keep doing it, right? What I did put up here was Goodwill, I guess. That's another place that we have to let them know how it is to best support him. And then once they know that, they go, oh, okay, well then here's this, here's this, and here's this. So even through Goodwill right now, who have really tried to help us find someone for a job training, that's another, a different session. They are still helping us currently with gas cards to take and show from work. I mean, we just need a gas card right now, right? So that's really helpful. So again, just really finding, and I would consider that more on the transition IDD kind of service side, to help us continue this transition, to get him to a spot where he's comfortable with that. Goodwill did also pay for him to take a class at ACC.
So that class was sort of a training for a
yet for sterile processing at a hospital, which was paid for. So right there, that picture is me helping out after about an 8-hour shift. Now, that was the training, about 40 hours a week for 2 months.
I think it was only 2 weeks. I only felt like 2 months. If I had been one. I think you got that. But so AC's the people did support him in taking a vocational training course, such as sterile processing, like he said. People who sterilize the instruments after that's sort of be something a full for people like after the job, it's a lot of steps to keep us safe.
Or a lot of responsibility too, because if they aren't there, then the whole hospital is a hazard job essentially.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And so part of that class was doing, like he said, externship. I get confused, externship, but it was associated with the class. So he did do that. And like he said, that's one of those pictures there. So again, there is goodwill down there. So again, it's just putting together these different pieces to help him in what he wants to do. My favorite one. So why I call it the Crossroads Marathon? You would know it by looking at me now, but I used to run cross country and I played basketball and I ran track. And I did hurdles just one time, but I did do hurdles. And so I used this picture because I remember what it was like with that training, right? It's lots of training, lots of running, and it seems like it never ends. Anyone's familiar with cross country, it's like it never ends. It's a beautiful path, all parks and hills and grass and trees and all the things, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is not gonna end. And sometimes you don't see your teammates because they're faster than you and better than you. But it kind of feels lonely sometimes, and it seems like it goes on forever. I mean, some of these, if you're a marathon runner, I was not a marathon runner, but this cross country, I could be running for 45 minutes just by myself, right? Making sure that I had to follow the signs so I wouldn't get off course. That would be really bad. And I feel like that's, at least for me, that's been our journey. It's exhausting, but it's also beautiful. But we also have to make sure we find where the signs are, where the people are. Sometimes, a lot of those paths or would be people right with water or encouraging you as you're running by. So making sure that you're finding those spots along your journey is very important as well. The crossroads, right, because we are really dealing with both mental health and autism. We didn't talk about the mental health piece very much on this one.
No, we didn't.
At 6, I think it was 6. He was initially diagnosed with ADHD. Remember the pencil when the neurologist. By 10 years old, we had started seeing between 7 and 10, we started to see lots of really intense emotional behaviors happening. I thought they were associated with his autism. I was also working started working at the time in our local mental health agency as a certified family partner. So I was seeing this day in and day out with families, supporting them at doctor visits, having therapists explain it, and I'm seeing this. It had not ever occurred to me that my son was dealing with anything other than a bad case of ADHD and autism combined. So that's what I kept hearing. Well, it's just because it's combined, it's so much worse. And I was like, gosh, is it really? What is it? One day I went to go pick him up at school, and again, someone else had just kind of put in our path. I walked up to her and I was like, we do everything. I said, if you tell me to give him purple juice at 1:32 on Thursdays, I'm going to do it. Just tell me, what am I missing? What are we missing? She kind of looked at me, right, public school teacher, and said, well, I've been reading this book called The Mind of a Child. I was like, oh my gosh, had not occurred to me. Went home at the agency we worked at, we worked with this particular provider. She was a psychologist. We really liked her. Called, they had an appointment. My kid's open. Does that ever happen? No. We went in, did all the testing. Our insurance fully covered it, or I think we had a small copay. Does that ever happen? No. And so by the time, right before his 10th birthday, we went in for the follow-up meeting, and she goes, almost the first thing she said was, I never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, she like never, ever for forever, would say this about a 10-year-old or a child this young. She said, but you all have really documented this very well, both at home and at school. She said, she said, I will be giving him a provisional diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I was floored. It had not crossed my mind. Even though by that time I'd been working at the mental health agency and looking at my husband, because I'm like, how many years? Probably about 4 or 5 years at a time by that time. So I totally left that part out. So that has been on Crossroads, is really making sure that we are integrating both sides of who he is and who we are and who he wants to be, with those community support services to make sure they are supporting us in what he wants. So youth guided, ask your child or youth about their dreams and work toward those goals. So what we always done within reason. It's just like, no way. Family driven. Remember that IDD and mental health systems may not have experience working together, and youth and family voice are imperative. When I worked with families at our local mental health agencies, I can't tell you how many I was like, let's go do this IDD assessment. Let's just see. It's free. Let's go do that. They would always say, well, what can I get? And I never understood that question because I've always been like, this is what I need, right? But for me, that's families and youth we don't ask that question enough of them. Tell us how we can help you. It's not about a list of services to check off, right? It could be a many of services, but not all those services always meet our needs. We have to, as a family, know what are our strengths and what we want to do and how those agencies can support us with that. So that really is on us to make sure that we're helping families understand that and having, as families, given our youth an agency and the voice to do that. Although he didn't talk till he was almost 6. Is it an issue now? So learn what your youth strengths are and help providers know how they can be helpful. Just that. Remember who you are as parents. Practice self-care. Be sure that family members do the same. This includes healthy communication, boundaries, and support groups. I'm going to blow my husband up right now, but I let him have some self-care this past weekend. Where'd you go? What was that?
I don't know if that picked it up. He's in Las Vegas.
So we do. Sometimes self-care is just using a face mask in the bathroom, not in Las Vegas. That's a fun. And be familiar with your child's emotional developmental stages. Support them where they are. We say this a lot about Quinn. Something is happening. He probably doesn't know this, so sorry if you let's find out. Something will happen, and I will look at each other. We'll be like, okay, yeah, that's about right. It's about 3 years behind. So it just really depends. I mean, a lot of things chronologically he's right on, but some things we're still working on. Some reactions are still a little bit behind because we don't, there's just things that he hasn't experienced and that we haven't experienced. So I think that's where the child development part of me really is like, this is so important for parents to know and understand. One thing for sure is we never saw his symptoms as bad behavior. People would tell us, well, why don't you spank him? I'm like, because he don't talk. You don't know why you're spanking him. So you cannot eat him out. Exactly. So really just talking to him and drawing those two or him. So that we were communicating with him and meeting him at his developmental time frame, wherever that was. So community-based supports. This is most all of the community-based supports that we've engaged with. On this side, you'll see the IDP part. I talked about class waiver. TWC helped us with an occupational assessment, speech, community social groups is a green leaf with Easter Seals that he attends now. Homeschool, again, right out of my little soapbox backpack, my fat jump in the back off. Mental health waiver. One thing I want to say about the mental health waivers, so you heard me say it was part of the NBCP waiver for a while. And then because the mental health stuff really just doesn't need some help, he did become part of the Yes waiver. He was part of the Yes waivers for about a year, I guess. And then I got a golden phone call on my landline at home. Yes, I do have a landline still. Saying, hey, your kid's name has come up on the class waiver. You heard me mention earlier. For him, that was about a 12-year wait. I think right now, that's up to about a 20-year wait for families. And that's if they know to be on the interest list when their kiddo is, hopefully they were diagnosed early on. If they know that their kiddo's name on that interest list at 2, 3, 5. If they don't, I have people who are calling me, oh, I heard about this thing, I put my kiddo's name on it. Oh, great, the kiddo's like 15. They're planning now for transition on it. It's hurtful, right? 16 years old, and to know they didn't have to wait another 30 years. Like a joke, so you know, I'm in here. So he was on the Yes waiver, helping with all the mental health stuff. Interesting, at that time, that's where he had the art therapist. At that time, he was also, I have to say this, I've not really ever talked about this before in this kind of forum, but I think it's important to note here, because it's another reason how and why we had to make choices in integrating both of these mental health and IDP systems. When he was in 8th grade, I guess spring, March of 8th grade, he was physically assaulted by his special education teaching assistant. And she had known him at that daycare when he was 2 and 3 years old. So that's another story, but that's why he left public school. So before he was assaulted, he was part of the Yes waiver. And then we got that golden phone call about class waiver, and we had to make the decision, even though he was literally in the throes of a mental health kind of crisis.
Yeah, we're in a crisis.
Yeah. We had to decide to stay with the mental health waiver or jump over to the IDP waiver. The mental health waiver, again, if you're familiar with Yes waiver, ends right about 18, 19 or whenever they don't qualify anymore. Whereas the class waiver is when he continues to qualify to support him lifelong. So that is, to me, a very shining example of families having to make those decisions. A lot of the stuff that's available on Yes waiver is not available on IDP waivers and vice versa. So we really have to reach out to our community to make sure that we can get specific in this work. Yeah. We have like 6 minutes on trying to get through. And then the combined side is the side where you'll see, and really those are things we had to combine, right, to make, to address both sides of his needs.
We didn't talk about cleanliness.
Yeah. One time about them, maybe. Don't tell me, John. So again, just support yourself. This is a list. There's really, there's a list of some of the proofs that we've just kind of engaged with over the years. This little asterisk, this is a list of community resources that we as a family engaged with, but of course is not a comprehensive list for every family. Not all communities are going to have the same, services, obviously, but this is just what I could remember when creating this slide, who we've been involved with. So certainly make sure if you're out there looking for how to support you and your youth and family. But the biggest thing is to know that you're going to have to really work at making those two work together. Talking about challenges, we have all, because he did the talk and he knew it, we've always, since he was very young, have talked about his challenges and diagnosis. For us, that was the right choice, stop here at the end. Even now, he would come to us and say, "This is happening. Why is this happening?" I'm like, "Okay, well, you already know. So let's talk about it a little bit more." So we have in May for Children's Mental Health Acceptance Day, or yes, a forum or something. We were interviewed on Autism, so that was kind of exciting. The Autism Society, the middle picture up top, would do volunteer work, but then we were also at a Spanish station talking about NAMI, Texas. This middle one, again in May, did a press conference at our city council. And then actually we also have done a little bit of work in the area of rare and undiagnosed medical conditions. That's another workshop, but we do a little bit in that area. So.
Actually, I have a question about when was that Spanish station? Was that like 3 weeks ago?
We celebrate all things. Seeking help when he feels hopeless, when he can do that, we celebrate it. Completing educational goals, even if he just researches, he wants to go to ACC, just having the thought, I want to do this, yay! We celebrate everything. Usually cheesecake or donut and the celebration. Even the initiative, the self-initiative, the clean his room. So have we ever made you organize and clean your room?
No, not really. I usually gave me the motivation to do it, and I have.
So even that we leave up to him because, I'm just not gonna have that fight. But this on. I'm about to go up there, I'll just go in there. I'm just not gonna have that fight. But when he does, we're like, yeah, super excited. I wanted to highlight this one as well. That TWC thing here I'm talking about that people won't tell it, won't email me back at. When they did, TWC did pay for a specialist driving program here in Austin for people who have neurodiverse conditions. It's an occupational therapist that actually does the driving sessions. So this was day 2, I think, of his second lesson. So I just want to highlight that while it takes a lot to get TWC and services going, it is really, really worth it. Okay, you have like breathing things.
If there's any question that want to be asked, me or my mother are ready to answer. Are there any questions?
I just want to say that you did an amazing job, and I'm glad that I couldn't get the question. Nidia has helped me at the 27-year-old son who is living with depression, and he just realized and came up with his own diagnosis that he's lived with autism too, which describes a lot. So it is about knowing your child, giving him that freedom and that time and that space. So I look at you and what you're doing and like, gosh, that's amazing. Give it a review. What I still don't very talk, but that's really great. I'm much over again seeing you over here. Thank you. I can wait.
Thank you for your presentation and everything that you do and share your story. I have a question. For the class waiver, the 1915 waivers and all of that, where would someone go to apply for those waivers?
So there is a phone number, and I think it recently changed. So I really need to say that and say that I don't know. But Google Brave is the best way to find things out. Trying to think if there's a way to get back to that question. I think I have those from your presentation yesterday. I think I'll have y'all's information. So let me see if I can track down that number again. Again, I think it just changed a few months ago. So there are two unnecessary words at that one. So I could just text her, hey, girl, what's your number now that you want? So I'll try to get back to that. But Google is really kind of the best way to find that. And really, you don't have to have a diagnosis to put your child's name on an interest list. So like I said, the second I thought something was going on, he was on every list. And so thank you all so much for being here. Thank you very much, Nidia Heston, for presenting today. Okay, so remember before you leave, make sure that you have signed it in so that your name is on here, so you're reported in attendance. Also, I have scattered around the library some QR codes. Please remember to have a complete evaluation so that you can be eligible for the orange QR code for your seniors. Make sure that you're keeping tabs with your workshops that you attend throughout the conference on your tracking sheet so that at the end you can receive all this. This is our last session of the day. If you haven't participated for tonight's networking event, join us at the virtual social from 5:30 to 7:30. If you don't have a wristband, go to the registration desk to get one. You must have a wristband to attend this event. Breakfast tomorrow will start at 8, and our workshops will start at 9. Thank you all. So please,
Thank you.
you got her.